All right, can we hear me? Good evening, everyone.
We can hear you, sir.
Hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. And we want to welcome each and every one of us to another CYSEC NG webinar. And my name is Precious Olives, and we'll be taking to another set of our monthly cybersecurity alerts. And of course, we want to actually use this opportunity to celebrate our 1 year in our consistency in carrying out our cybersecurity and CYSEC alerts. And forward to that, we've been bringing you solid content ranging from cybersecurity awareness, cybersecurity best practice, ethical issues, and at intervals, also hands-on training in both offensive security, defensive security, and personal protection when it comes to the aspect of cybersecurity and its relations. And further to that, we also today have one of our amazing speakers. Of course, it's not new to some of us, and that will be a person we all know, and the person of Mr. Fortune Andrew. Over the course of the year, we've brought you different professionals in different fields to speak with us in cybersecurity trending issues, like I've mentioned, ethical hacking and other important concepts within the field. So right now, we'll be inviting our co-host to be in person of Mr. Fortune Andrew, who will be taking us on a topic titled Ethical Issues in Cybersecurity. And what is this basically? We're just going to be focusing on the concept of what is right and what is wrong, because in the aspect of cybersecurity, a lot of people out there have been having difficulties in realizing what is supposed to be ethical and what is not ethical in the field. And with this, we are bringing in one of our cybersecurity engineers and also a penetration tester to carry us through these issues, mostly for the offensive guys. So thank you. I'll be bringing up Mr. Fortune Andrew. If you can hear me, unmute your mic and indicate while we move on. Hello, Mr. Fortune.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right. Sorry, give me 1 minute. Okay. Good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be with you all here today. It's a surprise because I did not know that this will be our 1 year anniversary for continuous bringing to the general platform the monthly webinar. And I'm lucky to be the one handling this. And hopefully you guys enjoy the session today and take something home at the end of the whole session. So I would love if you have your pen and your paper to jot things down, because we are talking about ethics in cybersecurity today. So jot some things down and note some things and take something away that you can share on your timeline to people that probably could not make it to this live session. All right, so I would love to share my screen right now, and then we'll commence. Okay. So may the eyes of our understanding be enlightened as we move ahead. So yeah, when we talk about the ethics that we have to deal with in cybersecurity, what are the important ethical issues in cybersecurity? It comes to mind to think, first of all, what is ethics? So from what I have here, ethics in the broad sense refers to the concerns that humans have always figured out about what is right or what is wrong, or how best to live their life. We have had, sorry, is someone drawing something on the screen? Okay, thank you. So a lot of philosophers have come up with their own philosophy towards what ethics is. And the most important thing is not life, but the good life. That is based on the philosopher Socrates. Well, now this is the question that the study of ethics attempts to answer today as we go on. Now, what does ethics have to do with technology or cybersecurity? Now, there's a growing international consensus that ethics is increasingly important to education in technical fields, and this is a must because the part of language that technologists are comfortable using. So the aspect of ethics has long been forgotten, and and then we need to bring that back because understanding and implementing such ethics would make life a bit easier for us, a bit better for us using these technologies that are being laid down in front of us nowadays. Now, to supplement its professional code of ethics, we have bodies like the IEEE that are working day and night to ensure that these technological ethics are up and running. And now consider that IEEE is also working on new ethical standards in emerging areas such as IT, robotics, and data management, not only in cybersecurity alone. So ethics cut across all aspects of technology, ranging from AI, robotic, data management, and so on and so forth. So now, what do you mean when we talk about ethics? Of course, this always has been true. Technology has never been separated from our ideas about the good life. Now, we don't build or invest in a technology hoping it will make one's life better or hoping that it makes all life worse. And now laws and this regulation have to be put in place to ensure that this doesn't make life worse, it makes life better because that is what technology has come to actually fulfill or to actually complement what has been added. So now, additionally, many lawmakers lack the technical expertise needed to guide effective technology policy. And this means making ethical designs and implementation such in dynamic complex environments where the few legal handrails that exist to guide those stresses are often outdated and inadequate to safeguard public well-being. So like I said, get your pen and your jotter because we are like going into a class that we have started already so that you jot things down and be able to take things away at the end of this webinar. So now, we're also looking at ethics. Now, for example, when we look at face and voice recognition algorithm, face and voice recognition algorithm can now be used to track and create a lasting digital record of your movements and actions in public, even in places where previously you would have felt more or less anonymous. All right. And what does a person giving access to all that data or tasked with keeping it secure need to understand how its ethical significance and power to affect a person's life? Sorry, hold on. Sorry.
All right, so we apologize for the hiccup in communication. Mr. Fortune might be having a network issue, and I guess I'll just have to move on till we can able to get him on track. And meanwhile, the concept of why we mentioning ethics in cybersecurity is basically, like I did mention earlier on, people are beginning to find it difficult to know what is right or wrong in the concept of cybersecurity. And over time, we have lawmakers in cybersecurity who help us try to implement these ethics in cybersecurity. And one of the very popular one most of us are aware of, anyone who has come through the whole concept of cybersecurity, at CH or CSU would have come across most of these rules. One example of those are for the payment card industry. Fintechs are necessary. It's necessary that fintechs are able to comply with the rule we call PCI DSS. And the whole concept of why that it is basically to enable these guys to be sure that data, like what Mr. Fortune was mentioning, data they collect over time from their customers. For example, you want to register with a bank. And I will give you a very good example of when CUDA did come up. All it just takes to register and have a CUDA account is as simple as just making a record, making an online form, filling the online forms and more. There was no so cumbersome process regards that. And let's not forget that it doesn't just go through just fintech. Even cryptocurrency, for example, Binance, most of these platforms require data from you before you can carry out, use their platforms. So now the whole concept Mr. Fortune did mention, because that was one of the key things I picked up, is companies like these that pick up your data, what are the necessary steps they take in making sure this data are secure? And even if me personally, I'm going to be, I'll listen to the end of this program. There are some key things I want to even ask as well. For example, when does one know that they have crossed the line in level of data they have retrieved from individuals? Now, many a times we are just.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So,
sorry for that.
So before you come up, let me just clarify something.
Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I was mentioning that most of the times it has been a thing that has bothered me personally. I don't know about many other people, and I guess because of you running this explanation, you will come across that. It's mostly importantly companies that require or acquire so much data from you. When does one knows that this company have either acquired too much of the data, or when do they cross the line? Because I've seen companies whereby the level of information, not only the ones that collect information from you. I did have the story of a person who went and registered for an online thing, and the next thing the person was saying information she registered online on public platforms and under the name of the company. So when do a company know this lines up? So what about individuals? How secure and does individuals get to? So you need to help us enlighten also individuals when they know that their privacy is being tampered with in the wrong. So I'll in that case, I would love Mr. Fortune to hop back in the webinar as we move on and also treat issues like this. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much for that explanation. And such companies such as Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, or the likes of Microsoft, they have now seen a reason to become more than companies. Now should I say that influence over the great states or over great nations has been seen over the years. So that's when justice, power, and responsibilities are be given to such technological industries. So how safe your data are with them and all that is based on the policy being assigned or based on the permissions being given to such organizations and companies. And now in the wake of revelations about the unexpected impact of social media and private data analytics on the 2017 election that we saw over there around the globe, the idea that technology companies can safely focus on profit alone, leaving the job of protecting the public interest wholly to the government is increasingly seen as naive and potentially destructive to social flourishing. And now we noticed that they are more focused on what they would gain, the money they would gain from these technologies that are bringing out. They are less protecting the public interest, only leaving all these responsibilities to the government. But now we can see that this is a me and you job. You know, me, the the technology-based company, this is our both job to put the public interest into protecting our online safety, right? But that's why we're here to talk about ethics and talk about what has been going on and what we need to do to change what has been going on. So now, not only does technology greatly impact our opportunities for living a good life, but its positive and negative impacts are often distributed unevenly among individuals and groups. And we can see over the years that this statement of these opportunities not being splitted evenly, it's been shown in most areas of life among individuals and groups. And in other cases, technologies can help to create fairer and more social arrangements or create new access to means of living well, or when cheap portable solar examples, we can see that now some rural villages they don't have access to electricity or power. Then what does this technological company need to do? They bring in portable solar power to ensure that these kids over there have access to light during the dark. All this we need to be put in place. Now, how do we ensure that access to these huge benefits promised by new technologies and are not exposed to risk? Now, this is a question about technology justice. And now we should know that justice is not only a matter of law, it is also even more fundamentally a matter of ethics. Now, let's move ahead. Hope you're taking down something and hope you're jotting so that at the end of the day, you have something to revise and check on. So now, if you're a cybersecurity professional tasked with securing a hospital network and critical data from invasion and attack, now you are intimately involved in protecting sick patients. So now, I don't know if any of you here actually listen to the Darknet Diaries. You would have, if you play the last episode that you released, is it this week or late last week, about Edge, ED, you realize that this is a pen tester that was given opportunity to test a hospital. So they were given the permission to, like, the scope, those what they call scope, out of scope and in scope, right? So when they mean out of scope and in scope, we mean I'm giving permission to test this, and test that. That is in scope. Out of scope, do not touch this infrastructure, do not touch this part of this website. So now, we're talking about the story of Edge, right? He's a pen tester, and then he was given opportunity to test this hospital. And they tested the external network and they realized that this company is, wow, they are pretty strong externally. So they did not find one single vulnerability. And then it just came down to him that it can't be, testing all the networks, that it has never happened before to him in all his history as a pen tester. So what did he do? He now moved the scope to internal network, testing the systems, testing if they have strong internal security in place. That means hope no one is bringing system that is infested with malware. Hope no one is bringing system that is infested with viruses. Hope no one is bringing system that have open port, that through that we can get domain controller access to this network and system. So they tested that as well. And then they realized that there was only one machine or one system that was vulnerable. That system was still in scope. But when you look at what happened after they tested and exploited it, the healthcare facility reached out to them that system was currently in use for surgery. And now, come to think about it, if that system is vulnerable and probably you're not giving the go-ahead and something bad happened to such patient, or the well-being of that patient or the life of that patient is terminated because of one security researcher or one penetration tester testing the network and exploiting it, and then the life of that patient is cut short, what then happens? That is also when this issue of ethics comes in. I just hope you're not bored with that real life story I just gave now. So,
no.
okay. So now, but you should just try to listen to more of this podcast. You would hear a lot of things. So now, in many cases, the well-being of patients, families, and caregivers is being shielded by these cybersecurity professionals by the practice. This is particularly stark example, but cybersecurity practices and professionals are also critical to protecting and protection of credit users, students, power, and water. And now we have seen over the years that cybersecurity is needed in every sector, in every nation, or in every state. Like, you can't do it without cybersecurity, and you must know that you can't just do without cybersecurity. Please note that in any sector that you are, cybersecurity is needed. Now, the healthcare sector, over the years, there have been this, should I say, dilly-dallying into should they allow our machines that we use for surgical operations and all that to be tested. There's even a what is it called? A biomedical village in DEFCON. DEFCON, if you know, it's happening next month, but it happens over the month, sorry, over the year. It happens once in a year at Las Vegas. So now, see the story of Ed. So these systems are being brought to DEFCON so that they will test them. It's now in the place of ethics to say, should we allow our systems to be tested in front of over 25,000 hackers coming to DEFCON every single year? But now you put into place the risk attached to this. That is, if you allow them to test our facilities, how are we sure that these hackers will not just go ahead and then exploit it crazily, putting our patients' life in danger? Or we give them to test, they report probably 0 days, or they report already known vulnerabilities to us so that we patch them. There was a two-way thing that we need to find the balance, and the earlier we find the balance, the better for us. And then we're talking about what does ethics have to do with cybersecurity, so that I don't go far away. I know probably you're enjoying the story, or probably it's boring, but stick with me. So now this means that ethical issues are at the core of cybersecurity practice, because these practices are increasingly required to secure and shield the ability of human individuals and groups to live well. And we have seen that given the increasing complexity and difficulty of securing online data and systems across a landscape of cloud computing services, Wi-Fi-enabled mobile devices, smart homes, and all that, we can see a multiplicity of hostile actors exploiting lacks and under-resourced security controls. And the ethical responsibility to protect others that is borne by cybersecurity professionals is an increasingly heavy burden. Hope I did not just speak too much there. So what I'm trying to say is, cloud computing services, Wi-Fi-enabled devices, smart homes, smart devices, they are all under the aspect of Internet of Things. And we can see that over the years, Internet of Things have been vulnerable to attacks. And this only happens when these systems are under-resourced in security controls. And the ethical responsibility is to protect others that is borne by cybersecurity professionals. Over the years, we have noticed that this is also an heavy burden that cybersecurity professionals have faced. When you're telling someone that your security control is under-resourced, underfunded, and then they keep explaining why they don't need to do this, why they need to do this, at some point you need to just strike a line to either back out or to increase the intensity in which you persuade such organizations or such companies to invest in security resources. And it must be noted that he who recruits the best hacker win. Okay, that is kind of funny because there are a lot of hackers out there, but it's the person that actually recruits the best one that either wins or that probably that is left at the other side that actually loses. So what are the important ethical issues in cybersecurity now? Earlier on, we saw that the good life is what ethical action seeks to protect and promote. We'll say more later. But for now, we can define an ethical issue as important or significant. So when it's associated with harm or benefits, we see a substantial possibility of making a difference to certain individuals, charging or chances for having a good life, or the chance in now, for instance, if that's this, now let's go back to our story of Ed. He ended up having a surgery the following week after test running that system and exploiting that surgical system. And then the medical appointment that he had the following week was an eye surgery. So now, when put on your thinking caps and imagine if, as the surgery was going on for his eyes, all the whole cells went down or went low, what would have happened? Now this is where ethics comes in. It's important and significant that we know the harm that are associated with such things. According to him, he sat down thinking about what he has done. What if a threat actor, thinks faster than
If you have a question regarding what he's saying, I would like us to kindly drop it on the chat box, or you could write them down while he preps. All right.
Sorry for the network difficulty.
Please, can you help us share your screen?
Okay, sorry. Let me do that. Share my screen. All right. Is it up now?
Yes, it's coming up. It's up.
Okay. So now we're talking about ethics. I've looked at some stories. Sorry, can you hear me? Can all of you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. Can you speak? It seems we've probably lost you again.
No, can you hear me? Hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, all right. So now, some harms and benefits are not ethically significant, and we should understand that. So now, say I prefer Coke to Pepsi. If I ask for Coke and probably you hand me Pepsi, even if I am disappointed, you have not really impacted my life in any ethically significant way. So now, some harms and benefits are too trivial to make a meaningful difference to how our life goes. Also, ethics implies human choices, and we should understand that ethics implies human choices. A harm that is done to me by probably a white tiger or a bolt of lightning might be very significant, but won't be ethically significant. For it's unreasonable to expect a tiger or a bolt of lightning to take my life or welfare into account. I just said a lot there. But we should take something out from there is that ethics implies human choices. Okay? That is that for that. If you have any questions, please just join them in the chat box, and so that when we're through, we'll answer them. So hope you're still taking down and jotting down some things. So now, I'm looking at the ethical issues of cybersecurity. So now, because doing things right in this context preserves or even enhances the opportunity that other people have to enjoy a good life. Now, good technical practice in such context is also ethical practice. So now, for instance, an engineer that was being given the opportunity to build a bridge, building the bridge, not just building the bridge for building's sake, they're putting the lives of future road users into the engineer's hand. So now, for instance, such an engineer is also guilty for an ethical failure if such bridge should probably later on collapse and leading to the death of a dozen of people. Now, we have seen that such engineer is actually guilty of ethical failure. And this would be true, even if they just so happen to have been shielded from legal, professional, or community punishment for the such collapse. So we should understand that, or we should note that why are the respective bodies checkmating all these professionals and all this? We should understand, for instance, the engineer that was being given the opportunity to build a bridge, and then life of human beings were in his hand, and then the bridge ended up collapsing and all that. There must be respective bodies that must be able to checkmate this. Ethics must be brought to our work, you know. So now, because doing things right is just awesome, you're giving a project to do that involves the lives of people. How ethical are you about it? Okay, that is food for thought. So now, in the context of cybersecurity practice, the potential harms and benefits are no less real or ethically significant, up to and including matters of life and death. But due to the fact that cybersecurity efforts are often carried out behind the scenes, largely hidden away from consumers, customers, clients, and other users, the ethical nature of cybersecurity practice can be harder to recognize. Shout out to all those cybersecurity, probably newbies, professionals, experts out there that are working behind the scenes to ensure that we are safe. Shout out to all of them, because some of their practices are hardly recognized by people. But hey, the good news is you're doing your work, and life of this probably the whole country, the whole nation is being put into your hands. So let's go about it. So now let's continue. Now, cybersecurity practices can significantly impact each of these fundamental interests of human being. And then in this respect, then cybersecurity has a broader ethical sweep than some of the stark example of technical practices given earlier on, such as the engineer giving take the charge of the bridges, such as the story I gave of Ed and all that. Now, effective cybersecurity practices can also generate a vast range of benefit for society at large. Now, let me tell a story as well at this point about effective cybersecurity practices can also generate a vast range of benefit for society at large. If you watch this reality show, Shark Tanks, there was a cybersecurity incident that actually happened to one of their, should I say, investors now. She's into real estate, and then she has a personal assistant. Real estate involves a lot of sending of funds, sending in of funds, sending out of funds, and all that. But she lost $400,000. How did that happen? A phishing mail was sent to a personal assistant, and then the personal assistant saw it because they were currently on a project, a real estate project, and then the mail looked so real that even probably someone in cybersecurity might even get confused into believing that such mail is from the authentic user. All right. Now, the mail was they need $400,000 to complete one aspect of the project, and then he wired out the funds of $400,000 ASAP. And then what happened? The money was what? All of a sudden it was gone, like blink of eyes, everything's gone. So that brings to our memory that there's a huge benefit that cybersecurity practices brings to the society at large. Imagine if such phishing mail is sent to everybody in a country. What then happens? What happens? We have less stable infrastructures, we have economic anxiety, we have less investment in such country, we have less.
Sorry, I was going to ask, was there any thought that that could be an insider threat of any sort? Because having to have more like conversations of a project you already have on ground to be leaked I mean, I'm sure that this is a question that's in somebody's mind right now.
Yeah. Based off the story, like the story that was being shared online, based off based off the story that was shared online, there was no investigation that brought forth probably an accusation that an insider threat was involved. But based on what we had, we realized that it was the personal assistant that was sent this mail and the money was wired out. But, it just comes to mind that they can be an insider threat. Insider threat is the greatest threat to any organization out there or the whole country. So, and it's just wise to also think that there might be someone inside the organization for them to be able to craft out a well sorted out phishing campaign. So yeah, I actually understand what you're saying, Mr. Olive. That might be an insider threat. So yeah, let's go ahead. So, but now we have seen that if effective cybersecurity practices are not being put into place, there would be a loss of infrastructure, decreased investment in innovation and all that. But if these cybersecurity practices are being put into place, we would realize safer infrastructures, reduce social and economical anxiety, we would realize that there was an increased investment in innovation and all that. So now, important ethical issues in cybersecurity. We have harm to privacy. Now, harm to privacy. Now, thanks to the ocean of sensitive data that people and organizations are generating today, or to use a better metaphor, many lakes, springs, and rivers of data that are pulling and flowing across the digital landscape. Most of us do not realize how exposed our lives and properties are or can be by poor cybersecurity practices. But now there was a huge harm to privacy because you feel you're living your private life online, but yet you're filling a lot of forms in a lot of sites that you're not sure of this site that you're giving this information and permissions in your phone to have access to. What happens if there's a cybersecurity breach? You would realize that your documents, your details are being taken because of lack of poor cybersecurity practices being put in place. So now, there are also important ethical issues with cybersecurity that we must ask ourselves. Now, some of the most common cyber threats to privacy include identity theft, in which personally identifying information is stolen and then used to impersonate victims in probably, let's say, financial transactions. Now, taking out loans in a victim's name or using a credit card to make unauthorized purchases or for other illegitimate purposes, such as providing criminals with stolen identity and other. We can see that one of the greatest threats to privacy is identity theft. And how are these done? For instance, let's say you're a victim of a phishing mail to log into your Facebook account. Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. What then happen? You fill in your username and your password, and then your account is being taken over. There's an identity theft done. And then they change your username, they change your password, they change your email, they start extorting, they start running a lot of blackmail on you. And then you're asking, how did that happen? Not knowing that it was due to your poor cybersecurity practices that you're being that you were being trapped in the net rather. So now, privacy violations of this sort are often used to get victims to harm the interests of third parties. For example, using black using blackmail to pressure compromise employees to betray sensitive client information, trade secrets, or engage in other form of corporate or government espionage and misconduct. Now, how does this play? Now, let's take DEFCON, for example. There's a social engineering village in DEFCON. And what did they do? Their goal is to get as many information from these top Fortune 500 organizations that we have right now in the world. It is real life, should I say, a real life getting of sensitive client information and trade secrets from these people. And then the person that actually ends up bringing the highest information is being crowned the winner, actually. But that is that for the competition being put in place. But we must note that how are these things being done? You realize that there is a form of pressure being put on such employees. Now, let this be a takeaway, to be able to put into check. How do you know when this is not really authentic? There'll be this kind of pressure being put into you. Let's say, for example, you're working in your help desk, and then you receive a phone call that probably your husband traveled, and then you need to access his ATM card, and then you're forgotten the password pin, and then you're adding this pressure. We must know that as employees, probably help desk and all that, should sense all these pressures so that we don't give out sensitive information, sensitive type information out to the whole public or to that person that has already organized this special campaign to you. So now, the risk of privacy harms created by poor and unethical cybersecurity practices are amplified further by the continued growth of a chaotic global data ecosystem that gives most individuals little to no ability to personal, curate, delete, correct, or control the storage or release of this private data or their private information. Hope you're also taking down something, jotting down something, so that you will take away something from this webinar session. So now, only regionally inconsistent and weakly enforced set of data regulations and policies protect us from the reputational, economic, and emotional harm that release of sensitive data into the wrong hands can cause. Now, privacy is not just our online activities either. We have seen that even facial gait and voice recognition algorithms as well as geo-coded mobile data can now identify and gather information about us as we move and act in many public and private spaces. So that privacy is not just about our online safety or online activities. What do you do about your facial, your voice, your gait, that is your movements? The algorithms being put in place to ensure that they gather enough information of such users. So yes, moving forward, I would not want to bore us with a lot of details. So now, let's look at transparency and disclosure. Another set of ethical issues in cybersecurity practices has to do with our general but limited obligation to transparency in practices that affect the well-being of other people. Now, because cybersecurity is a form of risk management, and because those risks significantly impact other parties, there is a default ethical duty to disclose those risks when known, so that those affected can make informed decisions. So now, there's an active attack going on, and then you realize that your organization is using such software. What do? You don't just keep it to yourself. You tell the respective bodies how they take informed decisions to patch such systems. That's why you see Microsoft, they come up with Patch Tuesday every 2 weeks to ensure that any bug, any vulnerability being found within these 2 weeks, they are being sent out to clients, sent out to users for immediate backups. And the person that doesn't back up is at his own risk. You see your system, you don't back up your system. How are you sure that you're safe or you're secure, that your system is secured? You feel you're backed up last month, you're going to back up this month. How are you sure there was not a new vulnerability that was being let out to the wide and you need to back it up to prevent yourself? So now, for example, it is generally agreed to be the case that if an organization discovers a critical vulnerability in its software, it should notify customers, clients, as I said, of the discovery in a timely fashion so that they can install a patch if available or take the defensive measures against threat actors. But yet, in many cases, the appropriate mode and extent of the disclosure and what counts as a timely notification is subject to considerable debates out there. Now, for example, in a case where a vulnerability will be very challenging to discover and exploit by a third party, cannot yet be patched by the security team and involves a critical network of high utility to consumers, a delay in notification until a patch is available may be ethically defensible. Now, since premature disclosure would potentially invite an attacker that would otherwise not be forthcoming, creating a higher risk of harm to others. Now, let's say company XYZ found a vulnerability and company ABC uses company XYZ systems and then realize that this vulnerability has a high risk. For instance, let's say it's not only company ABC that is using the system, the other companies using companies XYZ softwares. Now, looking at it, will the pushing out of such patch or such vulnerability invite hackers or invite attackers? When I mean hackers, I don't mean the ethical hackers, I mean crackers or people that have bad intent, right? Now, pushing out the vulnerability will it potentially invite an attack on the infrastructure? Now, these are what we need to think about. It's really ethically defensible because in premature disclosure of some informations are not just worth it because it can create a higher risk of harm to others than expected. These are still important ethical issues that we need to ask ourselves in cybersecurity. Please take notes, jot things down. I know why I say so. Now, although there are some general transparency and disclosure guidance and guidelines that can be helpful to consider as articulated in Section V of the ethical law. It remains the case that because each cybersecurity scenario involves different facts and places, different goods and interests at stake, there's no one size fit at all rule of instructions that one can follow to guarantee appropriate transparency and appropriately transparent cybersecurity practices. This means that typically what is required in each case is careful ethical reflection on the particular scenario and the specific risk, benefits, trade-off, and stakeholders' interest involved. Now, followed by a well-reasoned ethical judgment about what is best to do, given the particular facts and option. Now, all of these issues outlined earlier on involve ethical choices that must be made by cybersecurity professionals, choices that significantly impact the lives and welfare of others. All of these ethical issues are highly complex and variable and must be noted, although this does not mean that they are therefore subjective. Now, there are many reasons and there are many responses to cybersecurity issues that are clearly ethically wrong. Others are clearly ethically dubious or fall short of what we would expect from any respected cybersecurity professional. Still, finding cybersecurity solutions that are clearly right or justifiable by reasonable professional standard can be challenging and requires careful ethical reflection, analysis, and problem solving. the function of what we have spoke about today is to illustrate the critical need for those skills in cybersecurity and to give all of us, that is the audience, some initial practice in using them. So we have looked at ethical practices. We have seen the do's and the don'ts. We have seen what can happen if we are being handed off some ethical responsibilities and then we end up not doing the right thing. Hopefully you took some notes down and hopefully you'll be able to revise such notes at the end of this webinar and share it online so that people know that there was a webinar going on and this webinar is channeled to empower people, to enlighten, to create this awareness that we need to be safe online. So I would like to stop sharing my screen now, and I'd love to thank CYSEC NG for inviting me to be a speaker at this 1-year anniversary of the webinar session. Thank you very much.
Quite an insightful session for Mr. Andrew, and personally, I think a lot was being learned from this webinar, and I don't know if anyone of us have questions regarding what we've heard. Andrew has been able to help us enlighten us in the concept of ethical issues in cybersecurity, but it's a matter of sometimes not an issue within the penetration tester themselves, but also forward to that companies themselves can also be issues to the cause of cybersecurity breaches and on their own platforms as well. He was able to also elaborate that. Still, we're hoping to get questions. Any questions? You could raise your hands up, or you could drop them on the chat box. And for some of us who have not subscribed to our channels on YouTube, please do so, because each of this webinar will be featured on the YouTube channel. And as well, if you want any information or you want to consult us, you need our consultancy services, you could reach us at info@CYSEC and CYSEC.ng, info@CYSEC.ng. Also, you could follow our social media accounts and follow our social media accounts. You could join us on Twitter. We are on Twitter. We are on LinkedIn. We are on all social media accounts and generally, even Facebook. You can hit us on Facebook as well at CYSEC NG. I think we don't have any questions. And well, then we do have contributions. Okay, well, all right, so I would like to once again thanks Mr. Andrew for taking his time out to speak on monthly cybersecurity CYSEC alerts, and I hope you were well enlightened as well. So in any case, I would like to call it a day. It's already quite the time. Please, if you want to connect with the speaker, if you have any questions, meanwhile, and aside just this webinar, any question regarding cybersecurity and more, you could reach us on our mail, info@CYSEC.ng. I will be dropping that on the chat box, info@CYSEC.ng. All right, so thanks everyone for joining us our webinar. We'll be expecting our next amazing webinar, and be expecting more of hands-on from here on. So we now see that security, privacy is everyone's business and is everyone concerned. And if your company you are connecting to, or you're connecting with, or you're dropping your personal records or your private detail, are not keeping up to the necessary ethics, you yourself, the individual, should make sure you have zero tolerance or zero tolerance to short issues. So you should implement all levels of security you can from your own end. So thanks everyone, and goodbye.